Oh. Hello again, it's Lock Noob, and this is one of those locks which, if you're in North America, you are probably already aware of it. But over this side of the pond, it's actually a bit of a curiosity. This is a U-change lock, and I seem to have a factory key. I think I got this as an exchange, or I got given it. Forgive me if you did give this to me or exchange this with me. I have forgotten who it was from, so if you are reading the comments or watching the video, please just let me know who you are below. So there you go, this is a U-change lock, and the point of this is that you can just get another key of a different bitting, and as long as you have the key that currently operates the lock, you can change from one key to the other. The idea is that what you would do, and I don't have the correct change tool, is that you put in the key, you turn it 90 degrees so this little slot is upright. You'd slide in your change tool, which is basically a piece of metal shim, take out that key, put your new key in, then what you do is that you would take out your change tool, turn this back, and then take out your new key, and the new key would work. How does it do that? Well, let's pick it, let's gut it, and let's explore how this really innovative lock works. So, we're in the vise, and we might as well pick it, despite the fact that it's got such a weird factory bitting. It clearly is going to be an easy pick, but it'd be an easy pick regardless of the bitting, because it's got all standard driver pins. A 1.2mm pry bar up the top provides tension, and I'm going to be using a Peterson gem in 18,000th as my pick because it fits very nicely up this non-paracentric keyway. So that's 5, 4, 2, 1, and we're open. Oh, drop the tension tool. So yeah, you can see, I mean, that was just ridiculously easy. Let's open this up, and I'll probably just do that off camera actually, and then I'll come back and we'll explain about how this quite innovative mechanism actually works. So here we are with the entire lock disassembled, and before we get onto the rather interesting looking core, and I actually think it's really cool to look at, let's actually look at the other features first. So this is the body of the lock, the cylinder, and just look down inside. Look how big those pin chambers are, and in turn just look how big these pins are. So these are the standard driver pins, which made it for a much easier pick. And another feature of these is they are hollow, which means that the springs for the lock actually sit inside, and this I assume is a space saving mechanism. Very interesting, but there is a reason for why these pins and the pin chambers above them are so wide, and that's actually to do with the mechanism here for the key change. You see that the keys inside, the key pins move up and down as the key moves out, so in that regard it's all very normal. But if you're thinking, well, yes, but there must be a trick to it, well, there is, because if you're going to put in a new key with a different bitting, there needs to be a mechanism by which these pins are still at the right height and the right, therefore, shear line when the right key is inserted, which means they all have to be at different heights. How do they achieve that? Well, let's try and tap out one of these pins. There we go, and have a look at how it's constructed. So it's a standard key pin, but just look at how cool that is. It looks like it's got serrations in, but this key pin will never ever ever reach the height by which if you overpicked it you'd come up to a serrated spool. No, these serrations are there as part of the, if you like, ratchet mechanism by which you can move the height of the key pins up and down, so essentially make them either longer or shorter in correspondence to the bitting of the key. You'll also notice there is a press fit T-pin here with a very very fine little nozzle on the end, and that interacts with notches in the tip of this key pin insert, so you can see how it would fit there and stop the key pin at specific heights. And yes, there is a spring inside so that this can all be pushed out. It's quite a strong spring. So you imagine this as its shortest, it's probably going to be about that high, and its longest probably about this high. So it gives a reasonable amount of bitting variation there. So the mechanism by which this U-change works actually relies on being able to move this T-pin in and out so that you can disengage the nose and move the pin up and down in correspondence with the bitting of the new key that you've inserted. Now what I've got to be careful when I show you this is, of course, I don't completely disengage the locking mechanism or that T-pin when I show you the next bit. Otherwise I'll have pins and springs flying everywhere. So now imagine that this lock has been inserted inside the keyway. I've turned it 90 degrees and that's at my change position. Now this is where these weird little pins come into their own. I've already taken one out, but let's have a look at one in more detail. It's actually nothing too spectacular. It's just a flat piece of metal with some lugs either side so it locates, and a rounded top. Now the only bits which actually make any difference in this lock are the rounded top and the flat bit at the bottom. The flat bit at the bottom actually is there to keep even pressure on the T-pin. The rounded top actually locates itself into the wider pin chambers in the lock. So these will be kept under spring tension by the driver pins and their springs. So imagine these are located now at this position, 90-degree turn clockwise. These side pins, if you will, are being pushed down by the driver pins above. But they are thin enough and rounded enough that when you, because they're already at shear, when you push the T-pins out of their position, and I'll try and do that a tiny bit with this because I don't want to fully disengage it. If I push this in, can you see that I will disengage the T-pin? So I'm already on pin 1, and you can see that what's happening is I'm pushing the T-pin out of the ratchet in the key pin, and if I keep doing that, eventually what will happen is the T-pin here will be pushed out all the way, and this pin will shoot out and hit me in the face under spring tension. In the lock, however, it's of course kept in place by the fact that where my finger is the actual lock body itself, so that when you disengage a T-pin, all that will happen is that the pin here is raised, and you can start to see that now as I've inserted this tool. This pin is raised, and that will be able to go up into the widened driver pin chamber here. So that's a really cool feature, and you see that it's definitely it can't be inserted now into the lock because that pin's been lifted too high, so it's got to be engaging with the pin chamber above it. When you have actually then taken out your old key and you've inserted a new key, what you want to do is then push the T-pin back down inside so that it engages with the ratchets on the pins. So you would put new key, take your old key out, put new key in, remove your change tool, and then think about what's happening. This pin now is actually inside the pin chamber above it, but because it's rounded, what will happen is as you turn the core back, the lock, this will actually act like a small cam and push back down on the inside, pushing the T-pin back into the ratchet, engaging with it, and therefore providing you with new bitting. Really, really clever design. A design, however, that is fully exploitable. There is actually a bypass tool for this lock, so this is probably a very, unless they've updated this design since, a very insecure lock design. Which is, I think, is a shame, because the thought behind it is actually really, really neat. This idea of having a T-pin engaging with a ratchet on the key pins, so that a key cut to specific heights can be put in, so you can change the key if you like, and the key pins can adapt to the key accordingly just by disengaging these little T-pins and re-engaging them at the new key heights. And I just love the idea that these little side pins act twofold. One, to make sure that you sort of have pressure on the T-pins, but also so that when you disengage the T-pins and turn the lock back, they just naturally push back down on the T-pins to re-engage with the ratchet. Just a lovely, lovely design, albeit a flawed one. Well, I hope that somehow you understood my garbled explanation and that you enjoyed me exploring this really interesting U-change lock. I'll see you all next time.